By their nature, missing persons cases are mysterious and confusing, with no closure at all. They're filled with half-truths or strange clues and odd descriptions. In 2014, 28-year-old Lars Mittank would sprint screaming from the airport just moments after checking his bag in for his flight. He would run out of the airport and toward a local forest, and he would never be seen again. This video is sponsored by World of Warships, which is a free-to-play PC game in which you take your warships and wage war with them. And now you can wage war with submarines too. 3 British submarines to be precise. The Undine, the Sturdy and the Thrasher. Submarines, like ships, have their own positives and negatives. They tend to be pretty quick and maneuverable and fast to reload, but their very limited hit points mean that you're going to have to be pretty good driving that beast. The game itself is a team-based game of sea battles featuring over 500 historical warships painstakingly recreated accurately via genuine historical documents. So, if you're interested in giving this game a go, then you can use invite code UKSUBS, which will give a newly registered player 500 doubloons, 7 days of premium account access, 2 million credits, a token which will give a free ship after 10 battles, and 6 commander skill points. And if you use the link in the description box below the video, then you will also receive an exclusive starter pack just for you, and 20 million other people who also register a new account. So if you're bored and you want something to do and you want to help out the channel, then click the link in the description box and use code UKSUBS to register a new account and get some free goodies to kickstart your navy. Back to the video. Lars Mittank was a 28-year-old German traveller who had recently travelled to Bulgaria with his friends to soak up some foreign culture, have an adventure, create some memories. They stopped on the Bulgarian Black Sea coast, sometimes called the Bulgarian Riviera due to its beauty, hot weather and more wealthy clientele. According to his friends, they engaged in a number of activities including relaxing on the beach, swimming in the hotel pool, playing football and going clubbing. Lars was an avid football fan and followed Werder Bremen, often wearing his team shirt while wandering around Varna. Throughout the whole 5 days he and his friends did this, Lars is repeatedly described as calm, relaxed and in a good mood. His friend Tim did note, however, that Lars didn't seem to eat much, often just eating a bowl of soup or salad. While drinking in a bar, Lars became engaged in a football debate with another group of German travellers who were Bayern Munich fans. The debate became an argument, which eventually led to Lars separating from his friends and leaving the bar alone. His friends returned to the hotel to sleep, but Lars did not return with them. In fact, they didn't see Lars again until the following morning. When Mittank turned up, he looked a little beaten and Lars revealed that the night before, he'd been assaulted by a group of men which he believed had been hired by the Bayern Munich fans. Lars had an injured jaw and also a ruptured eardrum. Lars visited a local doctor about his injuries and the doctor prescribed an antibiotic called cefprozil for his eardrum. Due to his ear injury, Lars couldn't fly home when scheduled and would need to remain in Bulgaria a bit longer until his ear had healed. His friends offered to stay with him, but he said he would be fine and insisted that they keep their original travel plans. Lars and his friends all checked out of the Golden Sands resort at the same time and he accompanied his friends to the airport where they left the country. Lars then checked into Hotel Varna for one night. The Hotel Varna is a cheaper hotel situated near the airport, which is why Lars selected it, one would presume. Looking at over 1,000 reviews online, there doesn't appear to be anything strange, out of the ordinary or criminal about the place. Photos of the interior actually look quite nice. Later that evening, after he'd settled into his room, Lars' mother Sandra reported that Lars was acting very strange. He called her on the phone and asked her to cancel his bank cards, and whispered about being followed and looking for a place to hide before abruptly hanging up. Later at night, he sent a text message asking his mum, "What is cefuroxime 500? Cefuroxime 500 is an antibiotic used to treat mild infections. The assumption is that it was prescribed as a preventative measure to stop his damaged eardrum from becoming infected. Looking at the interactions and side effects of the medication, it seems to be a well-tolerated and commonly prescribed antibiotic, whose side effects are similar to all antibiotics. Mild diarrhea, nausea, and occasionally vomiting. In the event that you have an allergic reaction, the symptoms are rash, itching, hives, breathing difficulty, and swelling. All symptoms which Lars clearly was not suffering since he was seen sprinting around. In the morning, he called his mum one last time and said that the people who were chasing him were getting close. His cell phone was running out of battery, and so he dropped the call to preserve it. Lars then found a taxi and drove to the airport, texting his mum on the way to say, "I just made it to the terminal," as he arrived. Before he was permitted to fly, he would need to be cleared by a doctor, as cabin pressure changes can drastically affect ear conditions. He found the airport doctor and sat in a chair opposite him while the doctor asked questions and assessed his condition. Dr. Kostov cleared him for the flight, but at the same time noted some bizarre behaviour. Lars didn't trust the medication he'd been given for his ear, and the doctor was doubtful that he'd been taking it. Lars had clearly been uncomfortable and anxious, and when a construction worker entered the office, Lars muttered, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." He then leapt from his chair and exited the room. He abandoned his luggage, his identity documents, and his possessions and sprinted out of the airport into the entryway, where he strolled for a minute or so looking confused, before sprinting again into nearby greenery. This was the last time anyone ever saw Lars Mittank. Hi, this is the section of the video where I give you my theories or my thoughts based on the evidence that I've seen and talk about the multiple theories that surround the case. There are a number of theories linked to this case, and one which I've never seen suggested before because I invented it. First, the German bar brawl theory. The theory goes that Lars got into a scuffle with some Bayern fans. Some reports say it was in a bar, some say it was in a McDonald's. Lars was punched and it ruptured his eardrum. However, the group were not content with that and hired some people to follow Lars, and that's why he's now missing. I find this very unlikely, mainly because why would random German tourists hire someone to follow and kidnap another German over a dispute about football? What, we're supposed to accept that these people who never met Lars before felt so strongly about football that they spent their hard-earned money on paying someone to fuck him up? No. Even if we assume they did it themselves, it's still a huge stretch to accept that they would spend their time on vacation following around a random German traveller. Some people, and even how Lars spoke, suggested that perhaps he was being pursued by something more sinister and dangerous than just fellow tourists. Others have suggested that that area and that cheap hotel are hotspots for criminal kidnapping of tourists. While I was researching, I did find a lot of police reports of human trafficking in that area, with the Black Sea coast being a major pathway for trafficking. However, human traffickers don't typically take 28-year-old male tourists for a few reasons, but chiefly because, as crass as it sounds, there's just no market for that category of sex worker. So I don't think this theory fits either. Also, there's no evidence of it. Another popular theory is that Lars's medication for the perforated eardrum caused him to slip into a psychotic episode. This theory likely stems from a combination of Lars's paranoia regarding the medication and people not bothering to research properly. The reason that I say that is because I looked at both the clinical trial data for the drug and its continued safety and tolerance data since its release on the market. Induced psychosis isn't even a listed side effect. To give you a bit of insight, when a drug is tested at any stage, if any trial volunteer reports a symptom, it has to then be listed as a potential side effect, even if it's 1 in a million. How do I know this? I used to be a clinical trial volunteer, and I once saw another volunteer tell the doctor he had belly rumblings when they asked him how he felt post-dose. The dude was just hungry, but as a result of the medication then had to list belly rumblings as an ultra rare side effect. Even if he had a bad reaction to the antibiotic, it would just give him hives, difficulty breathing and a rash. If the reaction was really strong, then he'd be dead. Then there's actually no evidence that he was taking the medication at all. Both his mum and the doctor seemed to think that he wasn't taking it because he was too paranoid about it having some sort of negative effect on him. So there's no evidence he took the medication, so it couldn't have that effect on him. You know what does induce psychotic and paranoid episodes? Infection. Given that the doctor prescribed an antibiotic, they were clearly worried about infection, and an ear infection could have the potential to spread to other areas, like the brain. I think it's way more likely that Lars was suffering from a mild infection which progressively got worse, which would also tie into the fact that he was not taking his medication, because if he were, no infection, no problems. This can cause paranoia, delusion, psychosis. There's a whole host of symptoms that come along with this, all which present as psychiatric symptoms. In fact, there are also case studies where patients have presented with psychiatric symptoms like those listed before. They were given CT scans and found to have swelling and signs of infection in the brain, and after being given antibiotics, the symptoms completely resolved and they returned to normal. This condition is called encephalitis. For me personally, I think this fits best. It's rare, but not so rare that it's unlikely to happen. It accounts for all of the symptoms and behaviour, and there's a good chance of it occurring due to the fact that he had a perforated eardrum and likely slept outside somewhere in the dirt overnight. If that is what happened to Lars, then he unfortunately had an extremely unpleasant death, as his infection slowly got worse and his brain began to swell, and fever would eventually cause him to die just a day or two later, while suffering extreme and paranoid delusions and hallucinations. It would have been a pretty terrifying death. So, that's my theory on the Lars Mittank disappearance. What's yours? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next video.